Hi everyone, Alex and Eric, who has a mic behind the camera at Coram Farm. We are a year 3 Oklahoma flower farm that sells retail market bouquets from our roadside stand. It is Friday evening and Eric is mouthing to me like and subscribe because you're supposed to say it in the beginning of the video. So I'd love if you guys would do that. But it's Friday evening and we just heard thunder.
Oh boy.
So we need to get moving. But we got a bunch of questions from our viewers about like, can you do a video of making bouquets? Like, what does your schedule look like? And so I thought it would make sense for Eric to grab the camera to kind of follow me along on generally what a Friday evening looks like for us when we have our flower stand open on Saturday. So what's about to happen is I'm going to get a harvest bucket. I'm going to go out to the tunnel. We have snapdragons that have bloomed that I want to harvest and collect. And then we're going to come back inside our flower cottage and I'm going to start making bouquets because our volume now at the flower stand is this year we've done between 75 and 180 on Saturday in the flower stand. I can't make all of those bouquets Saturday morning like I was doing in year 1 and year 2. So I've had to split the labor between Friday night and Saturday night. So my goal tonight will be to make probably 30 or 40 bouquets, and then in the morning I will make the rest, however many that ends up being with the flowers we have that weekend. This weekend, we're very low on flowers. It's a good lesson with timing for us. You're always refining your crop plan and your timing. Our ranunculus are spent and our snapdragons in the tunnel are amazing. Our field snaps are lame. If you watched our tour video, I can link it below. We kind of talk about what we think happened. So I'm low on flowers. So I called our flower friend Allison. You met her on an interview video I did in March, which is great and you should totally watch it. She still has some flowers. She's about 45 minutes from me. She still had some ranunculus. So we bought ranunculus wholesale from her and I will put those in the bouquets with our snaps and sell them retail. The profit margin will be a little bit affected, but what's most important to us in year 3 is consistently filling our stand with bouquets so our customers know that it's reliable, that they can get flowers from us.
Consistency.
And
We
so
got good momentum. We want to keep it going.
So we're probably not going to have as many bouquets as we normally do, but we will have a lot and we will be open, and that is good communication and marketing to our customers. And so Allison dropped off the flowers. She put them in our cooler for us because I wasn't here at delivery. And I haven't actually seen them yet because we just got out of the car. We were doing stuff. So, look at those colors. So these are Allison's ranunculus. The fun thing about buying from her is she grew some different colors than we did. So she grew this cool, like white tipped rimmed one and some darker pink and some white. We didn't grow white. So this will make for some really fun bouquets. So I have that amount of ranunculus to work with. And then I'll show you here in our other cooler, I have at least 2 buckets of snaps already harvested. You can see what they look like. So these are our tunnel snapdragons looking absolutely monstrous. These are our field snapdragons looking like dorks, but they're still quality flowers in the sense that it's still a bloom.
Our customers watch this. You can't call
I
them
know.
dorks.
Okay, they're not dorks. They're not what they should be. They're not at their best, but they are still a fresh, So this is like a tunnel. This is a field. They're still fresh. They're undamaged. They're beautiful. They're just smaller. So because of that, we talked in previous...
That's like calling everyone a shrimp next to me, but that's obvious.
I know. You... Oh my gosh, you're right.
I make everyone look small.
You are like a...
Those snaps are like, I was normal last year, but...
Yeah. You're like a tunnel snapdragon.
Just because a giant snapdragon showed up.
I know. Well, you're the tunnel snapdragon, and most of humanity is the field snapdragon. But we've talked in previous videos about grading, and so because of that, a tunnel snapdragon I'm going to price differently in the recipe than I will a field snapdragon. That's how I'll make the recipes and stuff. But it is getting dark and ominous, and so we're going to grab buckets. We're going to head out to the tunnel and harvest all of the snaps. I'll show you that process and come back here in the cottage and we'll walk through recipes and just like the workflow I do to make bouquets on a Friday night. Eric, look. Okay, we're definitely going to need more than 1 bucket. Can we talk about this? We left for like a day or 2 midweek. Bumblebee. And clearly we have come back to an absolute forest. Okay, what I want to do, this is not the height that I harvest them at, but just to give you
Did you actually need supplemental flowers this week, or just do all
snapdragon bouquets. Maybe I'll do some
snapdragons?
straight bunches, but I just want to do this to show because I know camera can be a little bit deceiving. But okay, I'm going to cut these. So these are Costa planted in early January in our tunnel. I'm going to snip this snapdragon from ground level so you can see how tall it is because I'm a tall person. So maybe I'm also making it deceiving. You ready? Eric, watch, I'm going to pull it up. Doot, doot, doot. Doot. Doot, doot.
Oh my gosh, I have to like
Look,
back up here.
you guys. Right here, put it on me. You guys, I'm 5'8".
Go lower
So,
to your kneecap.
yeah, like if I put it on the ground, it's like a cane. And I'm 5'8". So, obviously, snapdragons. You can harvest them typically at about this stage when like the bottom florets have started to open. And they'll start to open up more. Like this is a good example. Like the bottom row is open and the second row has started to color up. Some people harvest them really tight, but I prefer to wait until they've started to unfurl a bit. Obviously, these will start to, the bottom row will fall off for customers eventually, but the rest will start to keep growing. Not necessarily all the way to the top, but they're gonna, almost like a gladiola, they will get tiered life out of the snapdragon. So that's why I feel comfortable harvesting mine tonight to sell them tomorrow. I'm not trying to hold them in the cooler for a long time. I don't like to hold snaps longer than a week. And when I do that, I try to harvest them a bit tighter than I am right now. I try to eliminate extra time. So I cut the snapdragon close to the height I know it'll be in the bouquet. So I'm not really having to snip it a bunch of times. And then I just grip it and strip the leaves. Because these are so aggressive, they actually don't strip the easiest because the side leaves are actually so thick. But this is what I have. Once I get a good handful of them, I'll rubber band them. I'll show you my workflow. Some of this, you guys, just takes practice to increase your efficiency. But so I held with my left hand, I snipped with my right hand, it's in my hand, I've stripped it. What I do instead of putting it to the bucket, in order to keep going down my row, I take it, I flip it upside down like this. So when I go down to cut this next one, the flowers are facing up at my elbow and shoulder and not down into the netting to get caught. So when I pull the flower back out, the netting might rip off some of these more tender blooms. So I'm flipping them in my hand, pulling it up, stripping it, going in my hand, flipping, and then I go until my little hands can't hold anymore, which is usually 8. I rubber band it and it goes in my bucket. And that's how I get faster instead of slowly snipping, stripping, walking it back to the bucket, walking back. If you keep kind of going like a typewriter, it saves you steps, and it does matter with your back and your feet and all of that. So that's snapdragons. I'm gonna get harvesting, and then it's a little floppy. We will head back. This bee, man, if you watched our ranunculus video, I think this is my nemesis. We will.
Where'd you go? Where'd you go, big guy?
We will head back to the cottage.
He just left.
Took about 15-ish minutes, maybe a tad longer, because Eric and I were chatting and observing the flowers. There's a bumblebee on my bucket because I cut all of his snapdragons.
And doing stuff for only YouTube purposes.
I know, where are you?
Time lapses.
Yeah, where are you, buddy? I want to pick up the bucket, but I don't want to. There he goes. Okay, so I have them very packed full so they stay, I have my hair in it too, stay more straight. But look at that. And there, see how straight they are, at least attempting to be? So, oh, they bounce on my belly. Okay, look. So we got our harvest done in the field. That's usually what I do on Friday evenings. We paused to feed the kids and put them to bed, but people ask what our schedule looks like, and that's the reality of flower farming with 4 kids, is they're part of our life. So we harvested, we paused, we fed them, we put them to bed. We're back out here, the sun is setting, and it's time to make some of the bouquets tonight, and I'll make them tomorrow. But I'm going to bring you along on the process on making some of them and kind of slow it down a little bit. My speed last year in year 2 was like 2 minutes a bouquet. This year I'm getting closer to 90 seconds, which I think is a really good time to stick at to be really efficient. And so if you are taking a long time to make your bouquets, that's something to have in mind, that I'm doing it in 90 seconds, and I think that matters for a market bouquet. Before I start, I will link in the description. I did a full hour-long video last year on how to make market bouquets quickly. I talk about my process start to finish, color palette, recipe building, the mechanics of having them in your hand and composing them, wrapping them, all of that. And so I'm not going to do a complete repeat again here. So I think that video is really worth watching. But now I have spring flowers, so it'll be a little different. The thing to look at first for good efficiency is that your space is all set up. And I know everyone's working with different space. It might just be your kitchen table. It might be in the garage. We have this now. We didn't have this in the beginning. I made them at our dining room table, kitchen table. But let me show you what I have set up. I have our buckets that we put them in. They're stainless steel feed buckets that we use in the stand. We don't use these for harvest. We use these just because I think they look as a nicer display. We get them at a feed store because they're literally a feed bucket. There's nothing floral about them, but that's where we get them. They're like $5 to $7 depending on the size. I don't know the size. Eric, do you know the diameter of this? Would you say 12 inches?
Yeah, that looks like a foot.
Yeah, so this is 12 inches.
I think we probably have 10, 12, and maybe even a little bit larger.
Yeah, I'd say this is my preferred size. So if
you
it's
have this
12
one
inches,
over here.
I have a big one, and I prefer. Yeah, Eric's getting my bigger one. They were out of stock when I went.
Sorry, that was probably really loud on the microphone.
I went, so you see the difference. I went when they were out of stock, and I bought just what they had. This is fine if that's all they have. I prefer the smaller. I think the bouquets get lost a little bit less in here, folded funky and stuff, but whatever, you work with what you have. So I have these, they're pre-filled with water, 2 or 3 inches. I just need their feet in water. They're just going to be in this water for 24 hours. I don't need a half bucket, and I want to keep the water as low as I can so that it's less likely to touch the craft paper wrap and get wet and gross. There's not a lot of water in here. There's nothing in here. It's fresh water.
It's been a good weekly chore for James.
Oh yeah. All my buckets are washed by our 7-year-old. He's paid to do it. So
8-year-old.
Oh, he's 8 years old now. That's right. Our 8-year-old. But he washed him last year when he was 7. So put your kids to work. They're good bucket washers, and it saves you time. So I never wash buckets.
He gets to learn efficiency because last year he would wash 5 or 6 buckets. He was
so slow and just
And this year he has to wash. How many buckets do we have now?
A lot.
We got a lot.
30 is what he ends up doing. So he washes all of them, and he does a good job. Sometimes there's soap residue, but he's working on it. So I have the buckets ready. I have our craft paper here. We use an 18 by 18 inch craft paper. It is 30-pound weight, and we bought pre-cut sheets this year on Amazon. You can get them at other places, but I like the 30-pound weight, and at other places it'd be 20-pound or 40-pound. I like 30-pound, 18 by 18. The box that you have to buy minimum order is 1,600 sheets. It's obviously a lot, especially if you're starting out. So the most economical thing to do is to buy an 18-inch craft roll on Amazon and slice them yourself. We did that all last year.
It
Obviously,
was, it was to music. We did it to music last year. It was
that's right. We have,
fantastic.
yeah, you did your little music sync, your nice edit.
It's our mass production
Yeah.
video. If you want to watch doing it by hand with a razor blade.
But this is important because I think sometimes newbies, you recognize where you have inefficiencies and you want to solve the inefficiency, but sometimes solving that inefficiency costs you a lot more money than your budget is ready for. So yes, 1,600 pre-cut sheets saves me a ton of time, and that's great. That box cost way more than I should be spending in year 2 because I'm not selling 1,600 bouquets in year 1 or 2. That meant I was cutting craft sheets, and that's just how it is. So sometimes fixing inefficiencies can cost you a lot more. Pre-fold all of them because you're trying to get yourself in a system where you're not doing each task on its own, but there's a flow to it. So typically if I wasn't filming a YouTube video, I would have my goal bouquets already done with the wraps. Like if my goal was 60, I would have done 60 wraps before I started. I wouldn't have done 20, started the bouquet making process, get water everywhere, my hands dirty, all of that, and then be like, oh, I'm out of wraps, pause, and need to do that. It's like you want to get your steps in order. So there's the wrap. I have my snips, my stapler, and my rubber bands here because this is where I wrap the flowers because it stays dry here, so it's less likely that the paper gets wet. And I make the bouquets on this side. If you watched that making market bouquet video I showed you, the process I showed you was more assembly line where I had all the buckets on the floor and then I could fit like 10 bouquets here, and I would go through and I would set the stems down in piles and then I would pick them up and make the bouquet. That is my preferred way of doing it, and it works great for summer flowers. I have found that ranunculus get very tangled in the bucket, and so it's much harder to say, like if this was a zinnia that had stripped leaves and it was a clean stem, I could come through and kind of like put my finger here and pull out the zinnia as I needed. But these guys are all intertwined, and so I found that system was a little trickier. And so what I do is I do a little bit more of the floret method where I make a pile of the flowers that I'm going to use and I pick them up and I'm making the bouquet in my hand as I go from the piles and wrap it. So it's kind of like the floret method versus my other method. You need to figure out what works for you and what's the fastest based on the flowers that you're working with. So now the most important part is determining the recipe. The biggest problem is overstuffing the bouquets. You tank your profitability by overstuffing. So you need to really think about your recipe. But at the same time, especially when you're new, your crops and your harvests are not as streamlined, and it's not as easy to make a recipe because sometimes you feel like what you have is very random, and so you need to be flexible, and this just kind of comes with practice in making your bouquets. But you really want to have a price per stem and not overstuff. Even if you emotionally think this doesn't feel like a $20 bouquet, it's like, but if you've priced it correctly, it is a $20 bouquet, and you have to get those emotions out of it. There's something else I was going to say. I completely lost my train of thought.
You stared at ranunculus.
I'm staring at the ranunculus again! I'm doing it again!
That was like a couple videos back, and you said, I had thoughts, and I stared at the ranunculus, and what did you say? I lost.
I had no thoughts thereafter.
I had no thoughts thereafter.
No, I had a really important point when I was talking about making a recipe. Oh, I remember. When you're making a recipe, whatever your bouquet costs is not the total amount of flower product you want in it. So our bouquets cost $25. I'm not putting $25 of flowers in our bouquet. I'm putting like $21, $22 worth of flowers in our bouquet because I have to account for the expensive box of craft paper, staples, rubber bands, trash bags, the time it's going to take me. It's still going to take me 2 hours to make, 80 bouquets, that sort of thing. And so that's priced into it. It's not priced into the stem. It's also priced into the rest of the bouquet. So the number I need to come up with is about $21, $22 when I'm making a $25 bouquet. So what I have to work with, you have to look at what you have and like the general-ish quantity breakdown. I have 2 buckets of ranunculus. I have 2.5 buckets of snapdragons. And so I think I'm going to do 5 stems of ranunculus and 5 stems of snapdragons. If some of those snapdragons are more of our field snapdragons, which are smaller, there might be 6 snapdragons because or maybe it might be 4 big ones, 2 small ones. These are like the micro grading adjustments I make when I'm making the bouquets, but that's the general template. What I'm aiming for is that every bouquet has larkspur. Every bouquet has ranunculus because that's what customers really want. And then I fit the snapdragons.
Larkspur, what people really want.
Larkspur is what really people. I like larkspur. I think it's pretty. It just looks ridiculous, and all the stems spill out. But
ooh, let's get close.
No, this is why it's hard. Sometimes you're just like, kind of like when you put on makeup. You're like, if I had to film this for like a YouTube influencer, it would look like ridiculous. But
this is, we're stretching out for you people. We're doing
well,
it live.
Look there, see.
Let's
nice.
say thanks,
this
Allison.
Is probably because Allison packed them and I didn't. Maybe Allison, see, she sells to florists, so she's probably way more organized in how she buckets things. And because I bucket things for myself, it's just like chaos and anarchy.
No, it's not.
Okay, so this is what I do. Kind of spread it out so I can easily grab to make the bouquets. I don't do...
It's like that you grabbed $100 in ranunculus.
I know, just like, whatever. So I don't... These are my snapdragons. They're a little bit crooked, but see, I don't sell to florists, so I don't care.
Man, you got some late.
I got some late anemones there. See how it's a little crooked? I don't sell to florists, so I don't care. My customers will enjoy the flower, and that's that. Okay, so here's my piles. Yeah, I had some like last minute anemones I saved from just being blown out in the field. But so these are the snapdragons, and I'll grab some of my snap lizards if you watched the last
should probably hang this
video.
Sunflower picture.
I would like it if we hung
to get
that
it out of the way.
It'd be nice if we hung that eventually. But okay, so here are my piles. One thing I do not do, shoot me, call the police, I don't care. I don't care about color theory. I don't really think it has a big place in a market priced bouquet. I think florists, yes.
Well, talk about what you learned last week. We did some color theory.
Oh, well, last week Eric was like, well, why don't you make some like more tonal bouquets? Because I tend to just do a mix. And so I did some like pink family together, and I did some like yellows and creams together, and I did some like hot fuchsia pink colors together and stuff. And I mean, I didn't really notice a huge difference. I don't think people cared too much either way. They like the bright colors a bit more.
Well, you told me that they came in and they looked at the pinks and they were like, that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
But then they just grabbed the like punchy bold colors in the end. They ended up deciding.
Yeah, our customers like the punchy bold colors versus like the softer. And so when I put all the softer ones together, I mean, they all sold out, but I don't.
It didn't really seem to change what happened.
But also to make a 90-second bouquet, which is what makes a $25, $20 bouquet profitable, I'm not a florist and I'm not creating an arrangement. This is not for an event. This is not a bridal bouquet. This is a sweet mom of 2 or older lady wants to treat herself to flowers for her dining room table and wants bright, cheery colors for a week.
Yeah, I mean, that's why the florist will still exist. I mean, we're not, this model doesn't put the
there's
florist out
a
of
skill
business.
and art to florist arrangements.
And
absolutely.
they charge for it.
Yeah, when you're buying like a sympathy bouquet
for $100
or a get well, it's like you're expecting something different. And so I just think I see content being created. I see people getting bogged down in like, how do you decide on color palette, color theory, and it's like
the thing we sell is not pure artistry.
No, and it's not ugly. It's just not what it is.
It's the experience of going to a farm or a market and getting beautiful locally cut
kind
flowers
of like
with less chemicals.
When you buy a cake for your son's 5th birthday, it's objectively a different creation than a 3-tiered wedding cake for a wedding. That doesn't mean that the 5-year-old birthday cake tastes bad or it's not worth its cost or it's poor quality. It just means it is what it is meant to be. And the 3-tier wedding cake is different. And what goes into it is different. What's expected from it is different.
Right. If people show up to our stand, they don't go, well, I would really, I mean, there were some people who'd be like, well, I really want, like couple of weeks ago, I remember some guy was trying to get flowers for his mom and said,
Yeah.
Really wanted more orange.
Sure, but then
But
it's
then in
like,
the end, like he still bought a bouquet because, like,
right.
I mean, it's
And we
25
sold
bucks.
90 and we moved on. Like, it's just, so I just,
Right.
what I'm trying to say is actually not a criticism. It's a release.
Well, it's the
of
price
your
point. We're
stress.
talking at this price point.
Yeah.
Like, there's just realities to this
Yeah.
whole situation, and it's
Correct.
really hard to like divorce the two things because people are used to the florist than the like off farm stand flower farm,
Right.
and people treat us like a florist
Sometimes
in the comments.
in the comments and
Like
requests
custom
for
bouquets,
stuff.
special
But
occasions.
when they come to the stand, they're not like, "Where's your $60 option?" You know, like they're grabbing one or two and
No,
they're
like,
heading
can you
home.
cut the price in half while I also want a custom bouquet?
Yeah, you're like, so. Okay, here's another thing that I don't think is. I'm actually trying to give you guys less work, so I shouldn't get criticism because I'm freeing you of expectation. But another thing that you're not trying to do, is you're not making a forever bouquet in this wrap. Because what's going to happen is people are going to come home, they're going to open the wrap, they're going to take off the rubber band, and some people just like grab and plunk, fine. But other people like to arrange it, they move the flowers around and everything. And so the way I'm putting it in my hand, the way
You should
I'm
show that picture of what somebody did with their flowers with their white
Oh
peonies.
yeah, I'll send it to you so you can put it on the screen. Someone was really creative and had way more artistic arranging skills than I did. But the way you compose the flowers in the wrap, I don't think make or breaks whether it's going to sell, because they are going to change it at home. You're not if you were selling a vase arrangement for $40, it's like, well, what they're getting stays permanent, and that's not the case in the wrap. So yes, I'm mindful in that, like, I'm not just like grabbing a chunk with no mind and putting it in the wrap, but I'm also not agonizing over the composition of the arrangement, because it's going to change, and that's not what they're looking for. I observe Eric.
That matters more for like less for spring and more for summer in terms of some placing of the flowers.
I try to, like, you'll see here in a minute, I try to like mix it so it's not just like 5 ranunculus and 5 snapdragons like next to each other. I try to mix it and kind of like be mindful of the heights, but I just think people still, it slows them down and they're shocked by my 90 seconds because they're spending too much time arranging it in their hand than I think that people are looking for. You see,
I mean, could you say like the actual concept here is to avoid arranging?
Correct.
Like in general.
Your
At
goal
this price
is
point,
pleasing to the eye, but not a set arrangement. But there's 5 ranunculus, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 3 big snaps, 2 small snaps. I'll probably add a third because I used the littles. But see how like they're not super in like bunches. You can see the colors.
Right, there's some arranging, but not.
Yeah, you look mixed, but like that, what, 15 seconds and I was talking to you?
Right, but that should be kind of the goal.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to get.
Yeah, and the way I placed them in my hand is not the stem length. I placed them so that none of the flowers are getting swallowed down too low. Like the snapdragons are not sitting way too high, and then these will be hidden. I'm trying to place them in my hand where I want people to see, and then I'll cut the stems and wrap it accordingly by how it's placed in my hand.
Right.
So
the goal.
This is an example.
You talked about this last year. You said
and I'll make some more.
Your goal was what was the term you used about like top down or something?
Yeah, you want to make a bouquet that looks nice this way because that's how you're selling them. And then when they take them home, they can arrange them how they want. They can cut some stems shorter. They can do tiers. They can play with it. But I'm selling a wrap that looks nice
largely
this
like
way,
level,
not this way. I'm
level
not selling
level
this.
in the wrap.
Yeah, I'm not selling this.
Right.
I'm selling that.
Yeah, the top.
And
down
I recognize a spring bouquet, and every flower farmer says that spring bouquets feel smaller because they're dealing with much more premium flowers. But what's going to happen is someone's going to spend $25 on this. They're going to get at least a week out of the snapdragons. They'll pull them out and trash them. And then they're going to get probably at least another 4 or 5 days, if not a full other week with this ranunculus. 10 plus days for $25 is 100% worth it. So Yeah, our summer bouquets in bulk will feel bigger because a sunflower is physically bigger in the hand or in the wrap, but a sunflower doesn't last 2 weeks. A ranunculus does. And on my goodness, like, it's beautiful. So this is what it is. It's in my hand.
You still do the manual cut here.
I do for these with the big chunkier stems. I'll use the cutter. But yeah. Cut. Okay, now this is the part I'll show closer on the camera. My rubber band. And again, if you want me to like slow down and really show everything, it's in that other video I did, if you feel like I'm moving too quickly for you. Traditionally with a rubber band, you go all the way around, you twist, and you go all the way around. It's a lot of hand motion. It's fatiguing. I have small hands. You're trying to cut down on inefficiencies, but also when you're going all the way around a stem, you're much more, or all the stems, it's more likely that you might snag a stem and break it, and then you kind of have to start over a little bit, which is a bummer. So another way to do it, which I find way more efficient, is find a strong stem. I like to do a snapdragon stem or a couple ranunculus. Get your rubber band up in there, and you go around the wrap and back up that same stem. And so you're wrapping around instead of the flex of up and around. Right now when the stems are like thinner, it's not as big of a deal to do the wrap, but when you have a much chunkier bouquet, like you have a marigold in there, you have a couple sunflowers in there, that's, I think, a lot of fatiguing work. So now it's time to wrap. I'm going to show this part. Is it okay? So I place the flowers high up on the mountain peaks with a little bit of room for the water. And then sometimes this might just be how your brain works, I guess, on how you like to do things. So I like to go left to right with my hands. And so I start with my left side and I bring it around. And this just takes practice, you guys. But like I take it and I get it up under there and cinch it. Again, this just takes practice. Okay, I'll come around. It's hard to film these things. And then I bring the other one over. And then this is the part, see how loose that is? If I just stapled it now, the wrap would just slide down into the water. This is the part where you have one hand on that left and the one hand on the right, and you're kind of doing it on camera makes me nervous, but I'm just kind of like cinching it to get this part tighter down here. And then a staple. Obviously you want, again, it's hard with spring.
You work to make sure that they don't get buried too deeply.
It's hard because the spring flowers are so thin and tiny, like things get a little bit buried, but ranunculus are forgiving. It's a little tight here, but it'll unfurl back.
Hard to do live.
It's hard to do live, but it's fine. People open it up and they love it at home. And also in a bucket, I always try to keep the buckets full. And so as we start to sell, I don't have just like one bucket with 2, another bucket with 1, another bucket with 3. I would combine all of those into one bucket. So when they're looking down, they're looking at like 5 or 6 close together, which also just looks fuller and more colorful. And so when they grab theirs versus like one lone bouquet on its own, you know, I've heard it said like full and forward in like your display matters. But I'll show you here. You know, 1, 2, snapdragon, 3, ranunculus. So I'm at 5. I'm picking just like complementary colors. I mean, my goodness, can any of these colors like really go poorly together? They're just like all pinks, purples, creams. So I have 4. Let's find 5. The yellows look pretty together. Bring this guy up because he's too low and you don't want him lost. I've got 3 big snaps, so I'm going to add 3 small snaps, just kind of around. If you need to, you can grab with the other hand and rotate it so that you're putting them in your hand around. Double check that nothing got dropped too low so that you can see it in the wrap. And there you go. Snip. I'm not cutting them all the exact same length. I just know I need them long enough to get their feet in the water. Find the snap, wrap it around, grab your wrap. I'm going faster because that's where I feel like I do better than when I like painfully slow it down. This is the part where when the bouquets are smaller, you have to kind of like wrap it under a little bit. When your bouquets get bigger in the summer with sunflowers, the cinch process is so much faster because the base of your wrap is just a lot thicker because the stems, marigolds, sunflowers are a lot thicker.
And we're avoiding all the extra flourishes, the branding, the like
Oh,
little
yeah.
ties, the labels, the stickers, the extra
Yeah, it
tissue
just,
paper, the double wraps.
I don't need it in our flower stand. Our farm, our drive-through, the flower stand itself, the experience of the purchase is all part of our brand and our experience. I don't need to add a bunch of razzle dazzle. I don't need to add a stamp step. I'm definitely not adding like a business card or a printed card. Tissue paper just means you're actually double wrapping everything. So you got to add the tissue paper folding and add that in. When people are coming to our farm, they already know they're coming to Coramdale Flower Farm, getting Coramdale flowers and going home. I don't need a bunch of extra fluff. I understand the argument if you're at a farmer's market or you do a consignment. I understand the marketing. If you add those things, you just have to price them into your bouquet. If you pretend like it's free razzle dazzle, that's when you get in trouble. And so back when I said like I'm adding $22, $21 in flowers, if I was adding razzle dazzle, that value that would go down because I would have to account for the
What about
longer
people who
time.
just say it's a marketing bill, so to
Yeah, but
speak?
then it's still a bill. So like you have to include it in your price point. Like you don't get to pretend like the extra step doesn't cost you anything. Like you just have to price it in. And I think that you need to make a decision on, is that marketing bill carrying its weight and worth it? Or is it because you maybe feel like insecure or you feel like that's what Instagram does? And so you need to do that extra sparkle. Some people might find it really helpful, and I hope that you're budgeting for it and making money on that extra. And then other people, I think, should drop it and streamline their process more and become more profitable. So it's not like don't ever do it, but I think you need to be really purposeful if you're doing it. And I don't see a lot of accounting for that extra sparkle in a lot of like market bouquet style things. If it's like in a full-on arrangement that you charged $40, $50 for, and you do like a twine bow with a pretty card that's labeled, it's just like, okay, well, that makes sense. And you've priced it in. But a $20 bouquet,
I wonder how many people that buy those like still like pull that off and like trash it.
they do. They 100% do. But I
Like you
think
said, the wrap gets pulled off, the labels get pulled off. People want they want the flower.
they want the flower, but I think some of it is like if you know, if you sold it like a, say, like a consignment shop where people maybe don't interact with your farm at all until that moment they see your flowers, and you want that like extra, like, oh, this is where they're from, and they look you up on social media, and like that thought process I get. It's just you need to include it in your price and not pretend like the extra is free. Because we do a lot of that. We do a lot of like you overstuff the bouquets pretending like that doesn't have a cost, or you add sparkle and razzle dazzle and pretend like that doesn't have a material or a expense cost. And I just think that that is not wise long term. So that's more of my spiel. I understand everyone gets very opinionated, and I understand that flowers is very emotional. I get it's a very artistic thing, and that is all true. It's beauty, it's luxury, it's extra. But you have to also know the product you're selling. And if you're the type of person that wants to really design and create and play with flowers, I think you should be working towards a farmer florist model where you're charging much more for what you're doing than doing a $15, $20 arrangement in a flower stand and spending 15 plus minutes on each one. I don't think that that is paying yourself or sustainable. So that's where my disagreement
Right, you gotta
comes
run
in.
those numbers, the labor numbers, the time numbers. We're not selling $50 bouquets from a stand. And you just gotta move quick. You gotta be
Yep.
fast. There's less artistry here. You gotta suppress the
And that
artistry.
doesn't mean that the flowers
This
are
is
like
why I couldn't
less
do
or
it.
ugly. It just means that you need to know.
Well, our product is not carefully arranged bouquets. It's not florist bouquets.
Right.
It's bounty, local, tall, quality flowers.
Yeah. I hear that.
The train.
The train agrees
thing.
with us, don't you think? The train is like, yes.
I feel like those snaps are so huge that they almost drown out the
I
ranunculus.
know, but it's just, but it's also like our customers kind of now, this is what, week 5 of ranunculus, week 4 of ranunculus. I feel like our customers know a bit more like what they're looking at, you know, and they get home.
It's time to add
And
some variety.
they'll see, no, but I just think like they'll see all the flowers like when they unwrap it and put it in their bouquets and their arrangement at home, you know?
Right.
Like they're like, I want the ranunculus. I enjoyed it. I bought them last week. They lasted forever, blah, blah, blah. It's not as foreign to them as like the initial week or two where they were like, what's this? So I think they look nice.
You gotta save your hand. Arthritis causing snippies there.
I know. I was just talking about efficiency. I just need to practice, and I'm not going to practice on camera. Because I know I have to learn how to put my hands in certain places to feel confident. I just haven't spent time yet practicing. But when someone asked, like, how do I keep the paper from getting wet and stuff? Honestly, I do my best to have it really tight and cinched. And then that's kind of it, because people really manhandle the bouquets a lot in the stand, and sometimes they inevitably slip down. If I see that a bouquet got like really soaked, you know, say the water is like halfway up the paper, I'll get a fresh wrap, take it off and give it a fresh one. But if like an inch of it is wet, again, I don't care because it's not living forevermore with the flowers. They're just going to take them off at home. So it's just kind of a is what it is situation.
I made this video longer than expected, which means I have a longer edit.
Yeah, we were like, let's go film a short video. And then Eric was like, no, I'm going to interview you throughout this process.
Because I start to realize all the stuff we deal with, the people's questions.
You have a microphone now, so you have some
I have power.
I know.
Everyone asked me to have power, so now we're going to get people to be like, can that guy behind the camera talk less?
Can you unmic him, please? But so our buckets I showed you, they fit 6 bouquets, so I can fit one more in there. And again, I think it makes it look really nice. It also holds these guys up straight so they don't get wet. But this bucket looks really nice in our stand for people to choose. They can largely see the... Okay, Eric's the artist. I'm the robot.
Somebody made us for this.
I know. My wonderful friend Emily made me this with our name burned on it. It's beautiful. But now I can show you here. So 6 to a bucket. It also makes counting easier at the end, because if I can just count my buckets and multiply by 6, I know for sure how many I made. But this is a properly priced $25 bouquet for our market and for our costs on our farm. This is obviously going to be region depending on what your expenses are. If you grow in California, that might look very different. If you grow, I don't know, in Oklahoma like me, this is what works for us. I asked for a bunch of questions about bouquet making. Some of them I answered in this video, but if I didn't answer them, that's going to be next week's videos. I'm going to make sure I go through all of those questions. If you have one, put it in the comments. I'll consolidate it and we'll continue talking about bouquet making. Personally, I think this is a big deal for those of you who are newer or seeking profitability in learning how to make a profitable bouquet and make it efficient. And make it efficiently, adverb, and sell them well at the market price point. I'm not talking to you pickers. I'm not talking to former florists or those doing weddings or those wholesales. Like those that want to sell retail market bouquets from a farmer's market, roadside stand, consignment. This is what you need to learn to be profitable. And so I want to keep talking about it, but also just show you a little bit of the mechanics of the process of how they're put together, and maybe give you some goals on like speed and other stuff that you can be thinking of to get better, because I've definitely improved from year 1 to year 3. There's been a big improvement, and that's what you should be seeing on your own farm and with your own skills. But I have a lot more bouquets to make. I'm very bad, it's a foozle. I'm very bad at estimating how many bouquets I can make, but I would love at least 50. for tomorrow? 50 I would love. If we can do more, that would be great. But it might be a rainy day tomorrow, which might suppress and all of that. So a tornado watch. But whatever, Oklahoma. Okay, we've spun it like 1,000 times. They're dizzy. They're like, we've seen the flowers on rotation.
Yeah, but I'm only going to use 3 seconds of it.
Okay.
I just need a smooth.
People are like, they are so pretty. They're big hands. But that is the process. I said I want to try to make 50, which means tonight I'd probably try to make 25, 20. Tomorrow make more. I'm tired. It's like after 8, pregnant. So I'm probably actually going to quit and just get up early with an iced coffee and a podcast and just get the 50 done in an hour, and that'll be it. But I hope this video was helpful. We'll continue talking about bouquet making in our next video. And again, I will link the super long, much more detailed bouquet making video in the comments. I think it's worth a watch. Any other comments, Mike Man? You gonna do an outro?
Well, you said that other video is long. I think we'll probably be at 50 minutes here.
Oh.
This, so.
Well, okay, a different kind of long and detailed for that video.
But hopefully people will watch it.
People watch.
Maybe they like my comments.
I think they do.
Do you like my comments, people?
If you don't, then you're not invited because Eric is 50% of this operation. So if you don't like his thoughts,
50.1%.
Correct. In our general partnership, he is primary owner. We need to go to bed.
Okay, bye.
Good night, guys.